overall, in peri-urban areas, we have an increase in livestock production and also in other perishable products, which is mainly due to the increased demands of the urban population. Overall, we see that urban middle income classes and also the urban poor moving up wants more and more animal source food. And therefore we also see a higher livestock production in these areas. In addition, livestock products and other perishables are the ones that are more valuable, and you have to often grow them and produce them close to the consumers. I think it's very important, especially of course in developing countries where sometimes the infrastructure to actually have large units in remote rural areas is not good enough to actually produce these products far away. So for many countries with growing urban areas, you need the peri-urban production. Otherwise you will not be able to feed the urban population. With all sorts of livestock production, you have a certain risk of zoonotic diseases, especially when you get a high density of both livestock and humans very close together. Then you will have an increased risk of diseases being transmitted from the animals to the humans, and of course the other way around as well in some cases. And you also sometimes have a problem with getting rid of the waste products from the production, such as adequate manure disposal and abattoir byproducts. So that the health consequences can sometimes be severe if it's not managed properly with infrastructure. In addition, from an environmental point of view, if sewage system is not good enough, then antibiotic leakage from the animals and from misuse could also get out into the ecosystem. So you have a risk of contaminating, well, the water resources for the cities. No, I wouldn't say that. I think it is necessary with the peri-urban food production. We can't get away from it. People are continuing to move to cities, cities are growing. We cannot avoid having a peri-urban food production, so therefore it's not really a choice. But I think it's important that we consider the potential risks with it and we try to build up the infrastructure so that we can handle them properly. But there's definitely a great benefit. I think it also depends on the structure of agencies in each particular country or city, of course. But I think it's important that human health and agriculture and veterinary services collaborate, because this is not a matter of only a veterinary problem and it's not only a human health problem or an environmental problem. So you have to kind of see the bigger picture and try to do something about it together. So I think in that case, it's just a matter of all the involved agencies to sometimes actually get together and see what are the risks, where are the problems, which infrastructure measures are necessary to facilitate it, and how can we avoid it getting worse if there is a problem. So I think it's hard to generalize exactly which should be involved, but the most important thing is just to realize that everyone probably has to communicate and see that it's not a matter of just pushing the problem to another agency. I think the government is key. We cannot only put the responsibility on NGOs or local cooperatives or private sector. We need a governmental function there. But again, as with the government, it's divided into often different components. You will have the Ministry of Health, you will have a Ministry of Agriculture, and sometimes we see in practically all countries I visited that there is a lack of communication and it's a lack of actually seeing that's a common responsibility. And I think one thing we should be clear about when it comes to peri-urban areas is that it's not a very clearly defined thing. You have urban areas and they gradually go into peri-urban areas, and sometimes you can have peri-urban structures that are actually pretty urban in some pockets. So it's not really as easy as it being a ring of peri-urban outside a city. In difference to other countries, India often has a very high density, which means that also peri-urban areas can have properties that might in other countries be described as urban, simply due to the sheer amount of people and livestock sharing the space together. So we must keep that in mind, that it's a rather floating definition and it's not very clear-cut what we always talk about. There are cities which are having more, promotion from the government, and sometimes that is actually a good way of handling it. If the government comes with too much requirements or regulations, then you might just push the problems into the informal sector, and that is in most cases not very helpful. So I think in the cases where it's working the best, you have a supportive government and supportive agencies that actually try to encourage the good practices, instead of, well, you have some cases when it's urban and peri-urban agriculture can be made illegal, especially livestock keeping, and then you often just push the problem into a black market where you actually have no control at all what will happen. Livestock production is not something that goes on in the rural areas, it's something that goes on practically all around the cities. And in many cities it's urban, it may be more intense and intensified in the peri-urban regions. But all intensification is not bad, but we also must remember that there are risks with the intensification. So keeping it under control and giving it the infrastructure as needed and support as needed to do it in a good way, I think is very important. We cannot stop producing food for the cities, so we have to do it in the best way possible and minimize all the risks with it.